India reopened its embassy in the Hermit Kingdom of North Korea after an absence of 3.5 years in December. New Delhi also sent a special representative to Beijing as the two sides tried to repair relations badly frayed by violent clashes along their border. How should we read these moves of rapprochement, and how do they position India in 2025? Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. Joining us to discuss this are Chyungly Lee, Institute of International Relations Professor and Research Fellow, and Rohit Jawahar, Doctoral candidate at NCCU IDAS, focusing on PLA expertise in strategy, counterterrorism and intelligence. He's also a regional expert in Asia, Europe and Africa. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show today. India closed its embassy in Pyongyang in July 2021 without citing a reason during the COVID-19 pandemic. Following North Korea's reopening of its borders in August 2023, embassies of countries closest to Pyongyang, China, Russia, Mongolia and Cuba, have resumed operations, followed by Western countries, Sweden and Poland in November 2024. In December, India reopened its embassy in Pyongyang. The office isn't fully operational, with an ambassador yet to be appointed and confirmed. Rohit, let me come to you first. So why might India have taken this decision to reopen its embassy in Pyongyang?
Simply as a basis of strategic recalibration. Now North Korea has come in the news, very important. Second, it was always in our plans to have an ambassador as quick as possible into Pyongyang. The problem is you need to have a suitable person to go there. It's not an ordinary posting. It's after Beijing and Moscow, it's a very prized posting. So you need to have a person who's quite capable. But North Korea is actually very important for India. Since October 1968, when we first started diplomatic relations with North Korea, it has been very important. It gives a key insight and plus an avenue for the Hermit Kingdom to understand what's happening outside.
So, Professor Lee, if you can, you give us your assessment, some of those strategic reasons, if you could help to list those off for us.
Okay, I think North Korea, although is kind of isolated from the world, but actually there are 160 countries have diplomatic recognitions with North Korea, but only around 20 plus something embassies established there. They see that building relations with North Korea is also an important thing. So this is a reopen, not a new establishment. So I think there is the instrumental functions there, and also a direct channel of communications for India's concerns there. So that's first. Then the second thing is I think India tried to play more a role, and they have a vision of this multipolar world order. We can see that India increasingly their role playing in G20, right, and BRICS as well. So I think they all have close relations with China and Russia. So I think also building relations with North Korea also part of the plan in that.
Yeah. Okay, and Rohit,
yes.
Professor mentioned there that there are 23 foreign consulates and embassies in Pyongyang, and actually they're from 22 different countries. How significant is India's presence, therefore, in North Korea? Let me just give you some more figures. So, as comparison, 115 in South Korea. This is embassies and consulates from 110 different countries. In Japan, 420 from 167 different countries, and 469 in India from 172 countries. So when we're talking about 23, or essentially 22 different countries, how significant does that make India?
Quite significant. You see, North Korea gives us an insight into their part of politics. Also, how do they view Northeast Asia as? For example, you know what ROK is all about. It has its own frame of strategic thinking. But what is DPRK thinking about? What do they want? For example, why is the North Korean peninsula very particular about nuclear? It's a bargaining chip. It's a leverage for them. But what do they want? So you really need to have an understanding. Having an opening as well as eyes and ears will help us understand the both sides of a problem.
Okay, now the US recently issued a dire warning at the UN Security Council about North Korea's nuclear program.
Alarmingly, we assess that Russia may be close to accepting North Korea's nuclear weapons program, reversing Moscow's decade-long commitment to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. We believe that Moscow will become more reluctant not only to criticize Pyongyang's development of nuclear weapons, but also further obstruct passage of sanctions or resolutions condemning North Korea's destabilizing behavior, as we've already seen.
There are only 5 recognized nuclear weapon states: China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom and the US. North Korea has been under UN Security Council sanctions since 2006 for its illegal nuclear weapons testing, and the measures have been steadily strengthened over the years with the aim of halting Pyongyang's development of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. So, Professor Lee, what practical changes does Russia recognizing North Korea, what do they bring?
I think those nuclear weapon powers states will be, they are recognized because of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. North Korea used to be in the regime as well as a member, of a signatory of NPT as well, but they withdrew in 2003. Okay, now they don't care whether people recognize it or not, because they are not abided by the regime anymore. So, now I think they will just go ahead and develop their nuclear weapon system and the ballistic missile program there. Yeah.
So, Rohit, not much of a difference then, or is it significant? Russia being one of the P5, being one of the nuclear states recognizing North Korea.
All right. What Russia would do, especially Kremlin, is to understand what North Korea is all about. It won't recognize its nuclear. It'll be thinking about how to control it. Because Russia had a past experience in dealing nuclear with PRC. They wouldn't want a nuclearized Korea at this point of time. Because if DPRK follows suit, how long does it take for ROK to have its own program? They have a civilian program. But how long does it take for them to go in for a military program? So they don't want that. More, it'll be like controlling them. Okay, Kremlin has decided to give them conventional arms. For example, recent delivery of MiG-29 and MiG-35 aircrafts, and also qualitative improvements into their tanks. So that's what they're going to do. And also leash into what North Korea is all about. Sometimes it's possible like a counterweight towards China in a possible future problem, if there's a conflict between China and Russia. I hope it doesn't happen, but it's how strategic ambit works out.
Right, right. And Professor, why does, because this is sort of at the root of India's fears, isn't it, about the North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile program? They fear that these weapons could end up with Pakistan. Why is that?
Okay, can I just add something on the Russia position there? I think whether Russia's position is very important in UN Security Council, right? Last March, Russia kind of suspend or vetoed the continuation of the expert panel to supervise or monitoring the UN sanctions against North Korea's nuclear weapon program. As for the Pakistan, as we know that Pakistan has been a historical adversary to India. Of course, India will be concerned about the development of Pakistan. And in the history, we look back, North Korea did have strong cooperations with Pakistan on nuclear issues. Okay, back in the Iraq and Iran war, Pakistan have closely collaborated with North Korea and transfer the technology to North Korea, and North Korea also follow that technology, produce some of the weapons, and then provided to Iran.
And Rohit, how could India's presence in North Korea, how could it help India achieve its strategic goals in terms of this nuclear, armament or arsenal in terms of North Korea?
The problem is if you can control proliferation efforts from Pakistan, that would go a long way in denuclearization. The biggest problem is nobody understands Pakistan is getting highly radicalized. So it doesn't take much time for some of their scientists to go rogue. They might come up with a newer technology or steal technology. There's also a lot of evidence, for example, if you say Libya or all those countries in the Arab world, they were all supplied, proliferated by Pakistan. So Pakistan is really a key part of this proliferation problem. If you tackle Pakistan and also help North Korea understand, give them an outlet, so that we can achieve denuclearization. What people don't understand is like, even now in India, in New Delhi, South Korean and North Korean diplomats do meet and talk behind doors, backdoor diplomacy. So that soil is there.
And on that, which is, we're talking about dialogue, and also India's role. In the 1950s, India played a mediatory role between the two Koreas during the Korean War, and both North and South Korea accepted the India-sponsored resolution to end the war. As a result, a ceasefire was declared on July 27, 1953. India established balanced diplomatic relations with both North and South without taking sides. Subsequently, India became one of North Korea's top 2 or 3 trading partners. India stopped economic exchanges with North Korea following its 2017 UN sanctions, but continued diplomatic communication. India has also provided humanitarian aid to North Korea. Professors, some Indian commentators have observed Delhi's sympathy toward both Koreas. How close have North Korea ties been, and how do they differ to the ties with South Korea?
I think India tried to show that his non-alignment policy, foreign policy there. So they have to. It's kind of very okay that they have recognized both Koreas, right? And so, but the substantial ties are different. For North Korea, as you say, that they have trade relations. For North Korea, it's more important to have India than India has North Korea, in my opinion. And as you know, even India signed the UN sanction over North Korea's nuclear weapon program. But in 2018, the expert panel review actually accused India violated the sanction there because of the trade relations between North Korea and India. Some of the traders, they didn't realize that they have to stop trading. So it's something like that. So I think that show an example that they really have a close tie. But for South Korea, of course, the relations is different, right? For South Korea, both are democracy. Of course, they are under certain kind of democratic coalition is there, especially in recent. They have G20, and they met in both leaders of South Korea and India.
And Rohit, I just want to pick up on something that Professor said, very interesting. North Korea needs India more than India needs North Korea. Would you agree?
Both sides, you need both. It's like a revolving door. You need to have a hand over the other side, as well as they need us too. One, to understand what's happening in DPRK's mind. Now what you find in DPRK, there is a sort of a finesse, a tact, a sophistication in what they do. Even it's their missiles or even their strategic thinking or even signaling. You find a finesse and a sophistication. So it's really important for India to understand what are they up to, what's the shift, one. And for North Korea, it's more like they need essential medicines. They have a huge problem with tuberculosis. Pediatric tuberculosis is a big problem. So India gives medicine, food aid. An opening is much important to understand. You can't completely shut the doors. You need to have a back door for that. And I think it's the right decision what New Delhi has done to opening up the embassy at a timely moment.
And in terms of this timely moment, how do you think Delhi will be kind of characterizing relations with each Korea right now, given that the North seems to have a rising sort of strategic profile in the region, and South Korea, on the other hand, is suffering current chaos?
Well, problem is like what India sees like ROK is more like an economic partner. At the same time, it's very important. because ROK needs India's labor, at the same time, the market for it to grow. But DPRK is a different case. It's not just political, strategic. It's very important because if it becomes a challenge for Quad or a key member of the Northeast Asian politics, you really have to have an ear what they're going to do. And also, if they're going to initiate a near conflict in the Korean Peninsula, at least you will have somebody to say, okay, stop, let's talk, a mediator. So you will at least have somebody over there, rather than have nobody, a shooting war.
Okay, so Rohit mentioned Quad. Let's go to that now. Indeed, India adopted a non-aligned policy, as Professor said, during the Cold War. However, in 2004, India founded the Quad, a security grouping together with the US, Japan and Australia in the aftermath of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. In 2021, Quad was elevated to the leader level by US President Joe Biden, which was seen as targeting countries like North Korea and China. In the last few years, North Korea has also deepened its ties with Russia, China and Iran, a so-called axis, which some see as a counter to the Quad. Professor, let me come to you. So do you see the opening of India's embassy in Pyongyang, does that change any of the dynamics around the groupings that we've laid out?
I don't think it will matter too much of the ongoing dynamics there, because I think this is what India has been doing all the time, that to increase their strategical influence. So India tried to make friends with both sides, right? So one is Quad, the other is Axis. India is in the middle, so India really has the strong strategical leverage over both sides. But in terms of Quad, then we have to read what the recent development of Quad. Although it's a US-led coalition, we understand that, right? But you know, the agenda, because of India has some reservations of put Quad into, change Quad or develop Quad into a military alliance, of course. Then the focus in Quad actually is more non-traditional security issues, climate change, cyber health security, infrastructure, and space issues. So we call this as a kind of India's role there. Make Quad in this way, okay? So I think, and another thing is for India, they try to make friends for both sides, but one of the very important goal for India is to be a leader in global South or even South Asia, right? So I think India will continue to do that. And we have to pay attention that 2025 Quad summit, India is going. So we will see the development is more soft rather than just talking about all the military hard security issues there.
And Rohit, let's just touch on China. To what extent do you believe that India can form a kind of alternative or balancing to China's kind of overwhelming influence on North Korea?
Well, what India can do is like first step in, find out, at the same time go by step, because you can't really barge in. And what China is doing over there, China has a set of rules, over there which is different. One, you should understand, North Korea is extremely guarded towards China. It sees China more like a threat.
So that's been a significant shift then?
There's been a significant shift because you have only one door. So when you have another door opening, you can have your options laid out. For North Korea, India is actually a safer bet. So for them, it's like, okay, you have India, I can literally speak, I can also talk what my problems are. With China, you have to be on guard. What's this thing? Like overbearing, a dominant. North Korea doesn't want it. And North Korea is not like a pushover state. It has its own set of thinking. So you have to really treat North Korea as an equal, not with kid gloves, as an equal.
Okay. Now, on 26th of December 2024, the Indian military installed a rousing statue of legendary Maratha king Shri Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj that you can see here on the banks of Ladakh's Pangong Tso Lake to, quote, celebrate the unwavering spirit of the Indian ruler. The move comes as New Delhi sent Special Representative and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval to Beijing for talks with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on border issues. This marked the first meeting between special representatives from both sides in 5 years. Months after their last meeting in 2019, China amassed troops along the line of actual control, which eventually led to the fatal 2020 Galwan Valley clash. Professor, let me come to you. So, firstly, what do you think was the message of erecting this statue of this famous warrior king?
I think just like what we understand, it's very symbolic. It's a spiritual statue there, and to kind of show the strategical assertiveness of defending their own border.
The problem with the statue, I can give you an insight. It has nothing to do with symbolism. It's more like a morale booster. You see, the tactical area of responsibility comes under the Maratha regiment. And for them, this is not just an icon. It's more like an emotion of a state. So Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj is more like an identity, what they are. So it's a morale booster for the troops. If it was symbolism, they would have put the statue of Zorawar Singh, who took over entire Tibet. They didn't do that.
Rohit, we have to mention that following the meeting, the Chinese readout, and it's been spread across a lot of state media for China, mentioned a 6-point consensus was reached, and it includes quite vague terms such as both sides agreed to enhance cross-border communication and cooperation. However, the Indian side did not mention this. Why was that?
Very simple. Look, China always plays this game of intimidation, of pressurizing, or saying one-handed tactics. What India is doing, like India has the entire consensus, what it is all about. It speaks about, let us go step by step. We agree to a thaw now, but we'll speak over it. China has willfully excluded that. In our version, China is shooting itself in its foot with its one-handed unilateral actions. But such unilateral actions won't have a bearing on our bilateral relations or even the current talks. We have our own agenda. We will prosper on that. As per the consensus about, we go step by step. You have cross-border trade. More important is the sharing of data between rivers. That's very important to mitigate flood as well as river flow because of the riparian disputes which we have. They're desperate for opening the markets to India, and India won't. After Galwan, post-Galwan, India will dictate the terms. Which market will be open for you? And China really has to understand this is the new orange.
Right. Professor, so bearing in mind that, is it significant that it appears that both sides are now back onto the special representative track? In fact, the last special representative meeting was just before the Galwan Valley clash. So what has been achieved, what sort of breakthrough has been achieved by them?
I think this 6-point consensus did not just come out yesterday or something, right? In October, they have the agreement first. Then Modi and Xi Jinping met. Then they kind of make agreement to have this engagement of the military forces on these tensions. So I think, I do think there are some meanings for these special representative meetings because it's called special representatives. That means that they can be to represent who? To represent Modi and Xi, right? So just so this is up the level of dialogue and negotiations, and they have the intent to establish a mechanism. Of course, the mechanism. Well, the next meeting they kind of also put the working agenda there. Okay, so they try to think about the cooperation over the river area and then border area, and then really work on something. It's the confidence building measures there. So gradually, we hope that they will change. But of course, we have to wait for another meeting to see whether they really want to commit to do that.
So a very step-by-step process. Rohit, a lot has been said about why there might be this upswing or thaw in relations between these two sides who have fought basically over the border for decades. But what do you see as the biggest stumbling blocks to this process?
The biggest stumbling block will be China never stands to the agreements. It always goes beyond our back. So what has happened is China has broken the trust. It's irreversible. What you see now on the LAC is a tactical adjustment. India won't just say, oh, we have got, no. India will say, okay, it's a tactical adjustment, but we are on guard. One, A, our lines of communication are shorter. B, China has understood having its troops for 4 years in the LAC has only been a problem. Why? Because it has got problems to do with altitude sickness. On my side, we've already understood. We have a sort of a set of a mechanism. How do you acclimatize troops? But China has understood that this is a different game. Miles away, after your Aksai Chin, you have to go down all the way to Sichuan. So by the time you reach there, your troops are either dead or dying. But for India, we have lower reaches. And we're very clear about what we want to do. We are actually on our side, shorter lines of communication too. There is no trust. That trust deficit will be there. We just can't trust Beijing for that. So that'll be there. What you can do is like, there'll be more like negotiations. Prime Minister Modi and our Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar, they said very clearly, we will have our own way, step by step. Globalization is understood like it's passé, but we will negotiate everything, where you will enter, what you will enter. You will see the same thing what Trump is going to do. He'll dictate which sectors will be open, which won't be open. So that's there.
Okay, thank you so much. We have to draw to an end. Chyungly Lee and Rohit Jawahar, thank you so much for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.